Hey guys, welcome to another episode of The Vinyl Den, your channel for record collecting by record collectors. I'm Nick. It's Tuesday, time to talk about some new releases coming out this Friday, May 2nd. It's about 450 albums coming out this week. I got 10 on my list for today. There's a bunch of links down below. You got links for the Vinyl Den Facebook group, for the merch page, for the Spotify and Apple Music playlist that I put together every week, and the Patreon page. So make sure you check all that out. Like always, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button down below, and make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified every time I release new episodes. Like I said in the intro, there's about 450 albums coming out this week, but I'm only going to talk about 10 of them on the show today. So if there's something I'll have on here that you're looking forward to, make sure you drop me a comment down below. Let me know what you're looking forward to grabbing this week. And like always, if you're unable to find these in your local brick and mortar stores, they should all be available online. I'll put links down below in the comment section for them. You can also always go over to the Vinyl Den store on Amazon. I got all the pre-orders on there, new releases, all sorts of cool stuff. Check out. As a huge fan of the band, of course, I'm excited to see Pink Floyd at Pompeii finally get released on vinyl this week. So this is the soundtrack to the 1972 film. It's going to be on 2 LPs. It's going to run you about $41. It's never been available on vinyl before. It's only been available on a CD as part of the early years box set that came out quite a few years ago now. And there's been a bunch of bootlegs on vinyl over the years. I actually have a really good sounding version of it. But of course, my thing always with unofficial pressings is once an official pressing gets released, of course I'm going to buy it, because I want to support the artist. And of course, this is going to sound a lot better than the unofficial pressing that I have. This is all newly remixed and remastered by Steven Wilson because Steven Wilson does that for pretty much every artist out there. He's done Yes, he's done Jethro Tull. There's been a couple other ones, these big artists that he's done over the last several years. But the film, the soundtrack, captures Pink Floyd playing in the ruins of the Roman amphitheater in Pompeii in Italy. This does also include 2 songs that weren't included in the film. It also has an extended version of Saucer Full of Secrets on here. It's got an incredible version of Echoes. Probably my favorite version of that song is on here. I don't think Pink Floyd gets nearly enough credit for being such an innovative band in the late 60s and early 70s. And this concert and this film, I think, really kind of shows the innovative spirit that the band had in the earlier part of the 70s. This is something that as soon as it went out for pre-order, it was an instant buy for me. I'll probably end up getting the Blu-ray version of it also. I think the film was all newly restored, so it's going to look really cool. I'm really excited to get a copy of that one. You've also got Wilco, The Whole Love, coming out this week. This came out back in 2011. It was their 8th studio album. This is a 3 LP expanded edition. It's going to run you about $70. I think this is the first album I ever heard from Wilco. They were nominated for Best Rock Album off of this one. And this album really showed the evolution that the band had gone through the early part of their career. Of course, the album received widespread critical acclaim. It's also the first album the band released on their own label. So in this expanded edition, you've also got live and studio performances. There's alternate mixes. There's also demos. This is one of those things where I probably don't listen to the extra material enough on an album like this. But, I'll stream that extra stuff and give it a listen this week. There's also a new album from Eric Church coming out this week. This is Evangeline versus the Machine. So this is his 8th studio album. There's multiple different variants that are going to be available of this one, including a light blue version, which is going to be the Amazon exclusive. It's going to run you about $28. The 10-time Grammy-nominated artist is back with his first album in 4 years. I think Eric is best known for his 2011 album, Chief. It went quadruple platinum here in the U.S. It hit number 1 on the Billboard 200. At least that was the first album I remember hearing from him. But Eric is really known for really pushing the boundaries of country music. I've been really critical of 2000s country music, but I really do enjoy some of Eric's stuff. And the new album does include Darkest Hour, which was released last fall, with all the royalties going to Hurricane Helene recovery efforts, all in Eric's home state of North Carolina. So, like I said, not a huge country fan, but it's definitely one I'll stream and check out this week. You've also got the reissue of Saturnight by Cat Stevens coming out. It was originally released back in 1974. It was only released in Japan, though, and then this was first released everywhere else, so a worldwide release last year for RSD Black Friday. It's going to run you about $28. I'm not really sure what the story is, why this was only released in Japan, because in the early part of the 70s, Cat Stevens was a hugely popular musician, so it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me why it was only released in Japan. This was recorded in June of 1974 at Sun Plaza Hall in Tokyo, during the tour he did right after Buddha in the Chocolate Box. The set list includes many of his best-known songs. I think this is going to be released on streaming services this week also. There's 2 songs they've released off it already. I didn't grab a copy of it for Record Store Day last year, so I'll probably grab a copy of it this week. A couple of jazz albums coming out this week. They're both part of the Blue Note Tone Poet series. I love the series. I love the classic series. Really, anything that Blue Note does is always great. But these are always mastered by Kevin Gray from the original analog tapes. I pressed RTI. You're never going to have any issues with any of these Tone Poet releases. They always sound great. I'm not familiar really with either one of these albums though. So the first one is Leo Parker, Rollin with Leo. So this was recorded back in October of 1961, but it wasn't released by Blue Note until 1980. Leo became one of the greatest jazz musicians of his era back in the 40s. And then by the 50s, because of some addiction issues, he stepped away from music. He made a brief comeback in 1961. He recorded 2 albums. This is the second of the 2. And this one was recorded just a couple of months before his death in February 1962. So I'm assuming that's why it didn't get released. It was because originally it was scheduled, at least from what I understand, what I read online. It was scheduled to be released in 1962, but it ended up being shelved. I'm not really familiar with any of Leo's work, so it's definitely one I'll stream and check out this week, because I'm pretty sure it is available on streaming services. And then the second Tone Poet release this week is Grachan, Moncur, some other stuff. So this came out back in 1964. Same thing. It's all mastered by Kevin Gray from the original analog tapes. I pressed RTI. It's going to run you about $39. So I'm not familiar with any of his stuff as a band leader, but he did some great albums with Jackie McLean back in the 60s. I know that Grachan isn't like your typical kind of jazz musician, definitely more like a avant-garde kind of style, but man, what a lineup on this album. He's joined by Wayne Shorter, Herbie Hancock, Cecil McBee, the incredible Tony Williams on drums. Great lineup, and it's an album that, like I said, I'm not familiar with either one of these. I'm definitely looking forward to both of them, though. And now we've reached the part of the list where it's albums that I've just never been able to get into these bands or their style of music, but I know a lot of people out there love their albums and love especially these 2 albums here. The first one was Godsmack, The Oracle, came out back in 2010. It was their 5th studio album. It's going to run about $28. This was the band's 3rd straight album to hit number 1 on the Billboard 200. It was also their first album since 4 back in 2006. I know a lot of people have been excited for this album because it's never been available on vinyl before. It's all newly remastered. I know this album was a return to like a more like alternative metal sound from the first couple of albums. The lead single from the album, Crying Like a Bitch, got some pretty moderate radio play, at least here in the Midwest. Hit number, I think it was like number 74 on the Billboard Hot 100. But this is one of those genres where I've really kind of struggled with over the years. New metal, alternative metal. As far as Godsmack goes, I probably have only heard maybe 6 or 7 other songs. Basically, whatever's been played on the radio over the years is really the only thing I know from them. But, I've been trying to get more into that genre, and I've been trying to give some of those albums more of a chance. So this is another one I'll add to my list to stream and check out this week. And then the second one that I know some people have been looking forward to, this is the 35th anniversary edition of Frizzle Fry by Primus. Came out back in 1990. It was their debut studio album. This one's going to be on white and purple vinyl. It's going to run you about $25. The interesting thing about this album is, out of all the albums that Primus have released, this is the album that Les Claypool lists as his favorite. So a year earlier in 1989, the band released a live album called Suck On This. The band used the proceeds that they got from that album to fund the recording of this one. And this was the album that introduced the world to their blend of alternative rock meets metal meets funk. It really set the groundwork for what the band would do over their career. The interesting thing about this album is I'm surprised they're doing a 35th anniversary release of this when this album has been pressed, I think, at least 7 times over the last 5 years. This album must sell pretty well because, like I said, they're doing new pressings of it every year. Primus is another one of those bands where I've only listened to a couple of their albums. I had a friend growing up back in the 90s that was a huge fan of Primus, so I'm more familiar with their stuff than I am with Godsmack, but I'll definitely check out more of their stuff this week. The next release is one where I'm a little ashamed to say I don't think I have any of this artist's music in my collection. I do need to grab a copy of this week. This is Chuck Berry, Let It Rock, Greatest Hits 1955 to 1960. So this is a compilation of 17 tracks from really the father of rock and roll. It's going to run you about $25. And as many of these songs really laid the foundation for what rock music would be in the 50s. And there was a Let It Rock compilation that was released back in the mid-90s. And I thought this was a reissue of that one. But this one has a different lineup than, it's got a lot of the same similar songs on there, but there's a couple of them that are different. They're completely different order. So I don't think this is any kind of a relation to that one from the 90s. But Chuck Berry is one of those musicians I think everyone has to have in their collection, even though I try to stay away from saying things like that because, music is so subjective. There's really nothing that everyone has to have. But I mean, when Chuck Berry came out in the middle part of the 50s, his groundbreaking sound would forever change the landscape of music. And I really like this compilation because it explores that early period from his career, which has, a lot of his most influential songs on it. $25, not a bad price. Like I said, I probably will grab a copy of that this week. And then the last album I got on my list, this is kind of interesting. This is not going to be up everyone's alley. This is Star Wars Lo-Fi Music, Volume 1 through 3. It's going to run about $26. So this came out back in 2024. It's the first time it's ever been available on vinyl. They took all 3 of the volumes and put them together to make this one release out of it. So this is going to be on cool splatter vinyl. It's like a blue with white and gray kind of combination. So these are all lo-fi versions of songs from the Star Wars franchise. So they're like deconstructed instrumental tracks. Like if you go through and listen to this album or listen to all 3 of these volumes, I mean, everyone knows most of the songs on here if you've ever watched any of the Star Wars movies. I've really gotten into lo-fi music over the last couple of years. I have a couple of lo-fi playlists that I play on Apple Music. It's got some of the tracks from these volumes on there. Some really good stuff. They're all available on streaming services. If you're a Star Wars fan, it's definitely worth at least checking out, I think. Well, that's all I got for you today, guys. Thanks for checking the show out. Make sure you drop me a comment down below. Let me know what you're looking forward to grabbing this week. Like I said, that Pink Floyd was an instant pre-order for me. I'll probably get it on Blu-ray also, because if you go on YouTube, the versions that are up on there, they just don't look great. I'm sure this is going to look absolutely fantastic. And it's going to sound fantastic too, because it's all, like I said, it's all newly remixed or remastered by Steven Wilson. But other than that, I'll probably grab that Cat Stevens release, probably grab those 2 jazz albums. Got some other stuff that I'll stream and check out this week, but let me know what you guys look forward to. Like always, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. That's all I got. Until next time, keep on spinning. Peace.